So in the previous lecture, we became familiar with the various core elements of BPMN: activities, events, gateways, and sequence flows. In this week, we are going to learn how to use more advanced constructs, indeed to model more complex scenarios. So one problem that organizations typically face as they become more mature in their process modeling and more in general in their BPM initiatives is that of the complexity of the process models, meaning that these process models tend to become larger and so harder to understand. BPMN provides a mechanism to tackle this problem by means of decomposing a model into different levels of abstraction, from a higher level one to a more detailed one. So this is achieved through a construct called subprocess. So far we've seen that with rounded boxes we represent activities, so things that are actively performed as part of a business process that take time and consume resources. However, in BPMN there are two types of activities, as there are indeed two types of activities in a business process. We have tasks, which are activities that are made by a single step, like approving an order or archiving an order. So with a rounded box, we represent a task. And we have other activities that are actually sub-processes, meaning that they are made of a number of steps. For example, in order to assess a claim, we have first to check the credit history of the claimant and then provide a risk evaluation. So there are at least two steps as part of this sub-process for assessing claims. So if we have a rounded box with a plus symbol enclosed in a box at the bottom of the rounded box, then with that we capture a collapse subprocess, meaning an activity that indeed inside has a number of steps, though these steps have been hidden. The subprocess is collapsed. An alternative representation for this is the expanded subprocess, where we embed the steps of the subprocess inside the box, which will typically be larger in size. So we can use this construct of the subprocess not only to reduce the size of the process model, hence making it simpler to understand, more intuitive, because we can hide some details, but also to identify parts that can be repeated or executed multiple times, interrupted, for example, to handle exceptions, or compensated for the effects that they have produced. So let's take a look at the first usage of the subprocess construct, simplifying the process model. So in this simple example, we have two subprocesses in a sequence: process invoice and process payment. However, I can take a look at this model at a lower level of granularity and then find out about the content of that first subprocess, process invoice. In order to process an invoice, we first need to enter the invoice or credit note details, and then we need to check the invoice for mismatches, which leads to two possible outcomes, and so on. So by collapsing the content of the subprocess, we can effectively hide its inner steps if these are not relevant to that particular target audience.